You've crossed into Crimson Moon, where bonds run deeper than blood. Tonight's story is about power, pain, and the kind of love that doesn't let go. I'm Noktula, and this one, it howls. Let's begin.
Lyra Ashwood lived in a house no one dared approach. It stood at the edge of Ashenridge Forest, where the trees grew too close and the fog never quite lifted. The house looked abandoned, weathered wood, rusted hinges, and ivy clawing over cracked windows, but inside she kept it pristine. Order was the only control she had left. She didn't leave often, only for necessities and only with gloves. No skin exposed, no risk of brushing past a stranger in the market and sending them into the spiral. The madness came quickly when it did, screaming first, then incoherence, then rage. Once touched, they were gone. Mind twisted beyond repair, senses turned inside out. She'd seen it happen enough times to understand the cost of being close. It wasn't a disease. It wasn't a spell she cast knowingly. It was a curse, her curse, and it had followed her since childhood like a shadow made of poison. Now, at 23, she lived on the edge of the Bloodfang Pack's lands as an unwanted ghost. They tolerated her presence, but feared her. No one came near, except for one. She'd never seen his face up close in recent years, but every week, on the morning of the full moon, there would be something left on the tree stump near her porch, a loaf of still warm bread, a folded cloak, a book, always worn and annotated, like someone had read it a dozen times before gifting it to her. Sometimes there were no gifts, only the faint imprint of boots in the soil, and she always knew whose boots they were. Alpha Kalen Voss. He never spoke to her, never crossed the invisible line between safe and suicide, but he watched her. He had since they were children. Back then, he'd been the boy with too much curiosity and not enough fear, the one who got caught sneaking apple slices into her basket when no one was looking, before the first incident. Before her touch ruined a boy's mind and everything changed. Now he was the alpha of their pack, and still watching. She never acknowledged him, not because she didn't want to, but because she feared the look in his eyes would be pity, and she could live with fear. She could survive hatred, but not pity. Kalen stood in the tree line, arms folded across his chest, watching her hang laundry in the morning mist. Her movements were careful, measured, as if each breath was calculated. The thick gloves she wore covered her to the wrists, sleeves buttoned tight to ensure no skin slipped free. The curse hadn't flared in months, but it was never truly gone. The pack still whispered, still remembered the man who'd touched her, skirt hem by mistake, and ripped his own eyes out before dawn. Kalen remembered it too. He'd been 16, freshly shifted, already burdened with the knowledge that he would one day lead. And even then, he'd known the girl across the glade. Wasn't just cursed, she was tethered to him. He'd felt it. The pull, the mate bond that flared beneath his skin when she walked by, even before either of them had fully come into their wolves. The instinct that said, protect her. But how do you protect someone from themselves? Alpha. The voice of his beta, Jareth, broke through the stillness. Kalen didn't turn. She's thinner than last month. She refuses aid. Again. I'm not asking if she accepts it. I'm asking if it was delivered. Jareth exhaled through his nose. Yes. Bread. Dried meats. That book you left last week. She kept it. Kalen let a long breath drag through his lungs. Good. She's not your responsibility, Jareth said, softer now. You've got a pack to lead. Kalen turned then, his eyes dark. She is part of this pack. No one sees her that way. I do. A pause. She's still my mate. Jareth didn't respond. He knew better than to argue what Kalen had never spoken aloud until now. The seer arrived the morning before the full moon. Her name was Mira, a frail woman draped in layers of ash-grey silk, her eyes clouded by years of visions. She came rarely, and never without purpose. Kaelin met her at the edge of the sacred clearing, the place where all visions began and ended. "You know why I'm here," she said, before he spoke a word. "Because the curse is changing." She nodded. "It's growing, restless. It has lingered too long, feeding on isolation. Soon, it will want more." "What does that mean?" Mira's cloudy eyes found his. "You feel the bond, don't you? Even through the curse. That is unnatural. The curse is reacting to your closeness. The more time you spend near her, the more it will mutate." Kaelin didn't flinch. "Then I'll endure it." She shook her head. "This is not a storm you can stand through, Alpha. If it senses the bond fully forming, it will retaliate. It will try to take you with it. And her. She didn't choose this. No. But neither did the forest you burned down to stay warm." He clenched his jaw. "There must be a way to lift it." "There may be," Mira said quietly. "But it will require sacrifice." Kaelin exhaled sharply. "Whose?" The seer didn't answer. Lyra found the book just before dusk, resting on the old stump, wrapped in linen. This one was old, the leather cracked, the title faded. She sat on her porch with a candle and began to read, gloves still on. Her fingers lingered on the margin notes, the familiar handwriting. He always left notes, observations, questions, sometimes corrections. It made her feel like she wasn't reading alone. She didn't know why he did it, why he risked so much to stay close. The alpha of their people, strong, revered, careful, still playing ghost in the woods for a cursed girl. A wind picked up, leaves danced, a memory stirred. She was 9, he was 12. He'd brought her honeycomb wrapped in cloth and grinned like he hadn't just broken every rule. "Don't be afraid of me," he'd said then. "I'm not," she whispered back. But the next day, she touched someone, and the curse bloomed. He hadn't spoken to her since. Not with words, but the gifts, the books, the way her porch was swept even when she hadn't touched a broom in days. That said enough. It was tradition. Every full moon, the pack gathered. A show of unity, a renewal of order. And every time, Lyra was summoned, not as a member, but as a warning. She arrived under guard, wrists gloved and bound, escorted by warriors who would not meet her eyes. The clearing buzzed with low voices, shifting feet. Children whispered behind parents' legs. Elders clutched talismans and muttered prayers. Kaelin stood at the head of the circle, spine straight, gaze unreadable. When Lyra stepped into the center, the crowd shifted back as one. Only he stayed. Still, she looked up once, just once, and caught his eyes. He didn't look afraid. He looked furious. "Enough," he said suddenly. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. The murmurs stopped. "She comes here every month to prove nothing. This tradition ends tonight." An elder stepped forward. "Alpha, it is protocol. It is cruelty," he snapped. "And it ends." Eyes widened. No one dared challenge him. Lyra blinked, stunned. Her wrists were still bound, the ropes digging into the wool of her gloves. Kaelin moved toward her, slowly, deliberately. She froze. He raised a hand, just to her shoulder, hovering an inch above it. The entire pack held its breath. He didn't touch her, but he didn't flinch either. "She is not your cautionary tale," he said, voice low but clear. "She is my mate." Gasps rippled through the clearing. Lyra's knees nearly gave out, and Kaelin, her alpha, her shadow, her storm, stood in front of her like a declaration of war. Lyra had not slept peacefully in years, but that night, after, Kaelin claimed her before the entire pack. Her mind quieted in a way it hadn't in over a decade. She dreamed she stood in the clearing alone, moonlight pooling at her feet, her gloves missing. The curse should have surged. The air should have grown electric, as it always did when skin threatened to touch skin. But in this dream, there was only stillness. Then Kalen appeared from the shadows, barefoot and bare-chested, his presence more felt than seen. His eyes were soft, the kind of soft she hadn't been allowed to feel in her waking life. "You're not afraid of me," she whispered. He shook his head once and stepped closer. The air shimmered, but didn't flare. His hand lifted, pausing just above hers. She knew what would come next. Her whole life had been built around the moment before touch. But then, he closed the distance, their fingers laced. Nothing happened. No madness, no screaming, no violent seizures, just warmth. Lyra woke with a gasp, sitting bolt upright in bed, heart racing. She pressed her palms together tightly, breathing through, the memory of his hand in hers. It was only a dream, and yet the scent of pine and smoke lingered on her sheets. Kalen didn't flinch when the council summoned him at dawn. The elders sat in a semicircle, heavy robes brushing the floor, eyes sharpened by generations of tradition. Elder Bran, the longest serving, fixed him with a glare that usually made lesser wolves squirm. "You've declared a cursed woman as your mate," Bran began. "In front of the entire pack." Kalen folded his arms. "I did. She is a danger to every life in this territory. She's been living among us for 20 years and harmed no one who didn't force proximity." "That's not the point," another elder snapped. "Your public protection of her will embolden sympathizers. You'll turn fear into tolerance. It breeds risk." "She deserves tolerance," Kalen growled. "She deserves safety. She deserves exile," Bran barked. "You threaten your own leadership by tethering yourself to a living weapon." Jareth, standing beside Kalen, tensed, but stayed silent. The room grew cold with the weight of unspoken threats. Kalen let them sit in it for a moment before responding. "You forget," he said finally, voice even. "I wasn't voted into this role. I earned it in blood, battle, and sacrifice. If any of you think I'll let go of what's mine because of your outdated fears, you're welcome to try and take it." No one moved. Kalen turned on his heel and left the chamber, Jareth close behind. "You just made enemies," his beta murmured. "I've always had enemies," Kalen replied. "But now they know exactly where I stand." It was late afternoon, when Kalen approached Lyra's cottage again, this time openly. No more hiding in the trees, no more silent deliveries. He knocked twice. When she opened the door, she blinked at him, stunned. "You're brave." "You knew I'd come." "I hoped," she whispered. He offered her a pair of gloves, simple leather, thick, designed to resist even the slightest brush of bare skin. They were lined in fur, newly stitched. "A gift," he said. "So you can touch things. Maybe even people." Her hands trembled as she reached for them. She stopped short. "I don't want to hurt you. I don't want you to be alone," he said. So she accepted them. She slipped her hands into the gloves he gave her, heart hammering, and looked up. "You think this changes anything?" "I think it's a start." He didn't reach for her again. Not yet. But he didn't leave either. Instead, he sat on her porch, just a foot away, and began talking. About the weather, the council, how his wolves were grumbling over his public declaration. And she listened. Not because she needed his protection, but because it was the first time someone had come to talk to her without expecting to leave immediately after. For once, she wasn't a burden. She was just Lyra. That evening, after Kalen left, Lyra dug through the attic she hadn't touched in years. The house was quiet, except for the wind nudging against the shutters. She found the box near the broken rafters, sealed with an old leather strap coated in dust. It took both hands to open it. Inside, her past waited. A pressed violet flower, long dead, but still intact. A ribbon from her childhood cloak. A silver coin engraved with the crest of the Bloodfang Alpha line. A folded paper drawing of a wolf and a girl under a tree. All of them tokens Kaelin had given her once. Some slipped into her satchel when she wasn't looking. Others left anonymously on her windowsill before he had the courage to speak to her. Beneath, it all was a letter, unopened, dated 8 years ago. She unfolded it carefully. Lyra, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to say it. I don't believe the curse is all there is to you. I don't care what they say. I remember your laugh before the world told you to be afraid of it. If one day it lifts, I want to be the first person you touch. Kaelin. Her hands shook as she read it again, lips trembling. She placed the letter beside the gloves he'd given her and sank to the floor, back against the wall, staring at the words until the candle burned low. The next morning, the curse reminded them it was still alive. A teenage boy, Silas, barely 14, accidentally brushed Lyra's coat sleeve. In the coal mines where she'd been collecting salt rock for her hearth, she'd turned away just in time to avoid full contact, but his fingers grazed the fabric near her shoulder and the screaming started. At first, no one believed it. Then he collapsed, clutching his head, eyes rolling back. He touched her, someone yelled. He touched the cursed one. Lyra froze, hands in the air, eyes wide. I didn't. He... The miners surrounded them, some pulling the boy back, others glaring at her like she'd just killed him. By the time Kaelin arrived, Silas was frothing at the mouth and muttering to himself in incoherent phrases. She didn't mean to, Kaelin snapped as he pushed through the crowd. It wasn't a full touch. He'll lose his mind, one man cried. You want this to happen again? She's dangerous. She's your Luna, Kaelin growled, and you will not raise your hand against her. The threat in his tone was clear. Not even Jareth moved to stop him. He knelt beside the boy, checking his pulse. It's not as deep as the others. He might come back. Kaelin looked up at Lyra, who hadn't moved since the first scream. Her face was pale, lips pressed together, her entire frame stiff. He stood and crossed to her. You're okay, he said softly. I shouldn't be out, she whispered. This was a mistake. You didn't do anything wrong. Tell that to his mother. Kaelin took a step closer, deliberately slow. I meant what I said at the assembly, he told her. We're not hiding anymore. You deserve to walk freely. And if someone dies? She asked, voice hollow. Will you still say that? I'll say it until it stops being true. Kaelin waited until the house lights dimmed before approaching Lyra's cottage again. He hadn't been able to sleep since the incident in the mines. Silas had stabilized, but the boy's mother refused to allow Lyra anywhere near the pack again, and whispers spread like wildfire. He knocked softly. To his surprise, the door opened at once. Lyra stood there barefoot, still in the clothes she'd worn earlier, her expression unreadable. I can come back, he said, already regretting the impulse. No, she whispered. Come in. He stepped inside for the first time, the scent of lavender and old wood wrapped around him. Her home was small but carefully kept, books stacked high, bundles of dried herbs strung above the hearth, candles flickering on every surface. She sat at the edge of the sofa, gloved hands curled in her lap. You shouldn't be here. And yet, he said, I am. Are you here because of the boy? No, Kaelin replied, then paused. Yes, but not in the way you think. Lyra turned to face him fully. He almost lost his mind. He touched you, that's all it took, but you didn't invite it. You flinched away. I didn't move fast enough. It's not your job to protect everyone from your existence, he said firmly. And I'm tired of watching you carry that weight alone. Lyra swallowed hard. And what if you're next? What if the curse takes you? He sat down across from her, elbows on his knees, voice low. Then let it. She blinked, stunned. I've loved you longer than I've been alpha, he said. Even longer than I've understood what that meant. I waited. I endured. And now I'm standing in your house, one breath away from touching you, knowing it. Could be the end of me, and I still want to stay. Her throat tightened. You shouldn't. But I do. The room fell into silence again, only the soft crackle of candle flame between them. It began with a tremor in her hand. Lyra dropped a teacup mid-pour the following afternoon, glass shattering across the floor. At first, she thought it was fatigue, the stress, the guilt. Her body wasn't used to being this awake, this exposed. But by nightfall, her skin burned. She stumbled to her bed, sweat pooling along her collarbone, fever surging like a wave. Her breaths came fast and shallow. The curse pulsed inside her veins like a second heartbeat. She writhed beneath the blankets, gasping, her hands clawing at the sheets as visions danced behind her eyes. Visions of touch, of bare skin, of Kaelin, reaching for her without pain. Then came the memory of her mother's voice. The curse will twist until it unravels. She didn't sleep. She barely clung to consciousness. The next morning, she woke covered in sweat, the fever broken. But something had changed. The air around her was quiet. Too quiet. She sat up slowly and realized her gloves had fallen off in the night and her skin wasn't humming. The static that usually lived along her palms, the electric charge that warned others away. It was gone. She held her bare hands, in front of her face, stunned. What the hell? A knock sounded at the door. She scrambled to pull her gloves back on. Her hands shook as she answered. Kaelin stood there, eyebrows drawn. You look like death, he said. I feel worse. He moved to step inside but paused. Are you all right? She hesitated. I think something's changing. His gaze sharpened. The curse? She nodded. It's quiet. It's never been quiet. Is that good? I don't know. He stepped closer. May I come in? She didn't answer right away. Then finally, she whispered, Yes. Kaelin hadn't let his wolf out in days. It stirred beneath his ribs now, restless and loud. Every moment spent near Lyra, every word she spoke, every glimmer of hope that the curse might be fading. It all made the tether inside him strain. He watched her as she paced the room, arms crossed, brow furrowed. I can still feel it, she murmured, but it's buried, like it's sleeping. He said nothing at first, just observed her movements, the ease with which she stepped closer, the way she leaned toward the light. He could smell her now, the true scent beneath the curse, rain and crushed petals. It made his wolf claw the inside of his skin. You need rest, he said. I've done nothing but rest for years. You had a fever, and now I don't. He stepped forward, slowly, testing. She didn't move away. Their eyes locked. The wolf surged again. He reached out, palm open, but stopped just before contact. Her breath hitched. I want to, he whispered. She nodded. So do I. But not yet. No, she said. Not yet. His hand lowered, and his voice came strained. My wolf. He's struggling. I can feel it, she whispered. It's like he's singing to me. Kaelin turned away before his restraint snapped in two. I need to leave before I forget how to. She didn't stop him, but as he walked out the door, he heard her whisper behind him. I want you to forget. Just once. And it almost broke him. Jareth found Kaelin at the training yard before sunrise, punching the reinforced bark post until his knuckles bled through the wraps. You're not healing, Jareth said. You're too wounded. I'm fine. Jareth crossed his arms. You haven't shifted in days. You're vibrating with energy. You're sleep deprived. And you nearly throttled Milo last night for calling Lyra a walking contagion. Kaelin didn't stop punching. Do you remember the girl who used to leave flowers on your window when you were 10? Jareth asked suddenly. Kaelin froze. She didn't do that after the curse came. I know. Kaelin muttered. You always said she'd come back to you. And now she has. Jareth gave him a long, quiet look. Then stop trying to martyr yourself. If you're going to fall for her, fall. All in. The whole damn pack already sees it. Kaelin exhaled sharply and lowered his fists. I'm trying not to kill us both. Try. Less. The next dream was sharper, not feverish, lucid. Lyra stood barefoot in the middle of a meadow she didn't recognize, moonlight painting her skin silver. Kaelin was there again, but this time he was no ghost. He smiled at her, not with sadness, but with peace. She reached for him. Their fingers met. And when they touched, he didn't vanish. He stepped closer, pressed his forehead to hers. They breathed together, eyes closed, hearts synced. Then he kissed her. It was soft, reverent, not rushed or desperate, but full of quiet knowing, like they'd kissed 1,000 times before, across lifetimes. When she woke, tears streaked her cheeks. But this time, she wasn't alone. A scent lingered again. His. More than before. She glanced at her gloves, still on, but on her wrist, just below the seam, was a thumbprint of warmth, like someone had touched her skin directly, and her heartbeat thundered in her chest. The old stories said witches didn't come unless they were summoned by blood or desperation. Lyra hadn't summoned one, but desperation had. She saw her that evening, at the edge of the forest near the hollow brook, where children once fetched water before their mothers warned them away from cursed territory. The woman stood barefoot in the mud, her cloak torn at the hem, hair like seaweed tangled around her shoulders. Lyra's breath caught. You're real. I am, the witch said, voice like smoke and wet leaves. And so are you. I didn't call you. No, the woman murmured, but something in you did. Your blood's changing, and the curse is no longer settled. Lyra swallowed hard. It's fading. It's fighting, the witch corrected. And when a curse starts to fight, it either kills the host or dies itself. Lyra stiffened. I need it to end. There's always a cost. I'll pay it. The witch tilted her head. Brave words. But you don't know what I'll ask yet. Lyra stood her ground. I don't care. Then, I'll give you this, the witch said, holding out a scrap of dark cloth with a single rune stitched into it. When the curse starts to bleed through, burn this. It will show you what's real, and what's still poisoned. Lyra took the cloth, fingers trembling. Will it hurt? Yes, the witch said, eyes glowing. But only the truth ever does. Lyra didn't tell Kaelin about the witch. Not yet. But when he came to her cottage the next morning with his usual quiet knock and warm silence, she couldn't pretend things were the same. Something happened, he said, reading her expression. She didn't look at him. I had a dream again. His gaze sharpened. Like before, she nodded. You touched me. And? I felt it. Even after I woke up. Kaelin's hand tightened at his side. What are you saying? I want to try. He went still. Lyra, just one touch. Her voice was soft but steady. With gloves, yours, mine, every barrier. I need to know if this is real. He hesitated. Then slowly, he peeled off his heavy leather cloak and handed it to her. Use this. She folded the cloak 3 times and placed it between them as they sat on opposite sides of the hearth. She reached her gloved hand over it. Ready? She asked. No, he said honestly, but I'll never be ready if it means losing you. They reached forward. Him with a gloved hand, her with trembling fingers. Their hands met on the cloak. No crackle, no madness, no searing pulse. Nothing. Just warmth. She inhaled sharply. I don't feel it. Me either, Kaelin whispered. They both froze in place, the silence trembling between them. Lyra looked up at him. "Do you think the curse is really dying?" "I think," he said, "it's giving up the fight." News traveled fast. Within 2 days, the story of the Alpha touching the cursed girl and surviving had reached every corner of the territory, and the council demanded proof. They called it the Moon Trials, an archaic tradition once used to test dangerous magic, normally reserved for rogue witches and unstable wolves, not someone born in the Alpha line's protection. But Kaelin agreed before they could twist it into exile. "She walks the clearing under the moon," Elder Bran explained. "We surround her. No chains, no weapons. If no madness falls, the pack will accept her place beside you. And if someone touches her," Jareth asked coldly, "then may the curse show itself for what it is." The night came colder than expected. The full moon bathed the clearing in silver as Lyra stood at its center, bare-handed, shoulders stiff. Kaelin watched from the tree line, barely restraining his wolf. Bran raised a hand. "Begin." Pack members moved in, slowly, forming a ring around her. Some flinched just from her nearness. Others stared, waiting to see the madness spark, but nothing happened. Lyra moved through them in a slow, wide circle, breath after breath. One man brushed her sleeve. A woman came close enough to scent her skin. Still, nothing. No screams, no frothing, no wild eyes. When she returned to the center, the silence was deafening. Bran looked like he had swallowed poison. Kaelin stepped forward, his voice low but commanding. "You asked for proof. There it is." "She's still dangerous," Bran muttered. "She's still your Luna," Kaelin corrected, "and she passed your damn trial." The pack didn't cheer, but they didn't turn away either, and in this land, silence could be as loud as trust. It was nearly dawn when Kaelin walked her home. They didn't speak much. Words felt too small for what the night had meant. When they reached her porch, Lyra turned to him, face half shadowed by the lantern's glow. "I didn't think I'd ever see this day." "I did," he said. She smiled faintly. "You always believed harder than I did." "I had to," he murmured. "You were worth waiting for." He stepped closer, not asking permission this time. She didn't stop him. His arms opened slowly, cautiously, but she stepped into them without hesitation. Their bodies met, fully, solidly, for the first time in over a decade, and still, no curse, no burn, no madness, just heat, just heartbeat against heartbeat. Lyra clung to him, fingers curled. Into the fabric of his shirt, he breathed into her hair, his hands sliding carefully down her back. They stood like that for a long time. Too long, maybe, but neither wanted to move. Not when everything had finally changed. "Stay," she whispered. Kaelin's heart stuttered. "Here," she nodded into his chest, "just for a little while." So he stayed, and for the first time in years, they fell asleep in the same room, with no curse between them, only longing. The backlash came swiftly. The morning after the moon trials, Kaelin entered the main hall to find 3 pack leaders waiting for him, backed by 10 warriors and a signed petition. The document demanded Lyra's removal from the territory. "It doesn't matter if she passed the trial," said one of the leaders, Darian, a tall, grizzled wolf from the outer ranks. "Her very presence divides us." "She passed your test," Kaelin said. "She's my mate. That should be enough." "It isn't," another growled. "You've blinded yourself. She's a risk. She's not pack. She's an omen." Kaelin's voice dropped. "Say one more word against her, and I will remind you why I was chosen as Alpha." "Chosen by fear," Darian spat. "Not loyalty." Jareth stepped forward then, teeth bared. "Careful." Kaelin took the document and tore it in half without breaking eye contact. "You want rebellion?" he said coldly. "Try it. See how far you get before I bury your names in stone." They left without a fight, but not without hate. That night, Kaelin returned to Lyra's side with a weight in his chest he couldn't name. She noticed it the moment she saw his face. "They came for me again." He nodded. She sat beside him, hand brushing his. "You can walk away. I never will," he said, gripping her hand tightly. "Even if the whole world demands it." Lyra's dreams had changed. They used to be misty things. Images of fire, laughter, then screaming. A hand reaching for hers. A voice whispering her name before being drowned by static and blood. But now she dreamt of fire that didn't burn her. Of a woman in silver robes kneeling before a glowing lake. Of a red moon bleeding over a forest full of wolves whose eyes had turned white. And of herself, standing in the center of it all, dressed in black, arms outstretched, as if summoning something ancient. She jolted awake, drenched in sweat. Kalen was already up, seated at the edge of the bedroll by the window. He turned at the sound of her gasp. "Another one," she nodded. "They're different now, clearer. Anything we can use?" She hesitated. "A name. I think it was whispered in the dream. Mirella. Does that mean anything to you?" Kalen frowned. Mirella was the name of the last true curse binder. She disappeared over a century ago. Lyra's breath caught. "I saw her. In the dream." "Then we need to find out why," Kalen said. "Because if you're seeing her, something bigger is at play." Kalen rode into the summit circle with Jareth at his side, and Lyra cloaked behind him. The summit was a neutral gathering called only in times of supernatural imbalance or territorial threat. His presence alone turned heads, but Lyra's silenced the crowd. Some recognized her from old rumors. Others stared like they were seeing a ghost. Elder Bran stood stiffly among the alphas, flanked by 2 betas and the silver-bannered guards of the southern ridge. "You called this summit," Bran said sharply. "Yet you bring her here." Kalen stepped forward. "Because her curse is fading. And it wasn't random. Someone crafted it, bound it, and set it on her with a blood seal. She was meant to destroy from the inside." A murmur rippled through the circle. "Who would do that?" one alpha asked. Kalen glanced at Lyra, then back. "We believe it was Mirella." Gasps. Silence. Then laughter. "She's dead," someone scoffed. Lyra stepped forward and unwrapped the rune the witch had given her. The fabric burned faintly in her palm, crackling like old embers. "She isn't dead," Lyra said clearly. "She's waking." The alpha of the eastern border narrowed his eyes. "Then what you're saying is this isn't over?" "No," Kalen replied. "It's only beginning." They found the first body on the ridge trail near the northern watchtower. A scout, throat slit clean, no signs of struggle. Then a second, found by the creek, his body twisted unnaturally, pupils blown wide, madness in his frozen expression. "This wasn't a rogue attack," Jareth muttered, crouching beside the corpse. Kalen nodded grimly. No scent trail, no wolf markings. This was magic. "Dark magic," Lyra said, stepping closer. She didn't flinch at the bodies. She barely blinked. "They were used as vessels," she murmured, eyes glassy. "To send a message." She knelt beside the creek and touched the water. A dark ripple spread from her fingers. Kalen stepped forward sharply. "Lyra." She didn't respond at first. Then her voice came low and strange. "He's coming." Kalen crouched beside her. "Who?" "The Rogue King." Jareth's expression hardened. "That old myth." "No," Lyra whispered. "He's real, and he's the one who brought the curse. I saw him, in the dream. But he doesn't want me dead. He wants me broken." The Rogue King came with the autumn wind, howling through the trees like it knew his name. They didn't see him, not at first, but his presence made the air thick. The forest animals went quiet. The trees leaned east, as if trying to flee. Even the pack wolves stopped howling for 3 nights straight. Then one night a figure appeared outside the border wall, tall, hooded. His shadow cast longer than it should have. Kalen met him at the gate, flanked by 2 guards and Jareth. "State your name." The man smiled, teeth too sharp, eyes too black. You already know who I am, Alpha. Lyra stepped onto the wall above them. The man tilted his head. My bride, he said softly. Kaelin's body went still. She's not yours, he growled. She was made for me, the Rogue King replied. My blood bought the curse. My name is etched into her bones. She is my queen, and you're just the fool keeping her warm until I collect her. The air grew colder. Lyra stared at him, trembling. Why? The Rogue King looked up at her. Because I need your power, and because I'm tired of being alone. Then he vanished, like smoke on the wind. Lyra didn't sleep that night. Kaelin didn't either. They sat in silence at the cottage. Hearth, firelight dancing between them. Do you believe him? She asked quietly. I believe he's not bluffing, Kaelin said. And I believe you're not his. She looked down. But he owns the curse. Part of me was created to belong to him. No, Kaelin said firmly, reaching out to take her hand. You're not a thing, not a possession. You're a person, Lyra. You choose who you belong to. Her eyes glistened. But what if he pulls the curse back to punish me? What if I can't fight it? Then I'll fight it with you, he said. We're not alone in this. Not anymore. She leaned into his touch, and he didn't pull away. The warmth between them wasn't feverish anymore. It was steady, real. I want to stop him, she whispered. Kaelin nodded. Then we will. Outside, the wind howled again. But inside the cottage, a different kind of fire burned, quiet and determined. And it would not go out. Lyra sat at the edge of the ancient well, her fingers trembling over the parchment Morella had left behind in her vision. The witch's rune had burned into her skin days ago, now faded. But something had changed since the Rogue King's appearance. She was waiting for you, said Thorn, the blind witch who lived in the outskirts of Kaelin's territory. The crone's cottage smelled of lavender and ash, a place caught between centuries. She? Lyra echoed. Morella, Thorn rasped. Her memory clings to you like smoke. You're not just cursed, child. You were a key in a lock that was never meant to open. Lyra swallowed. Then tell me how to lock it again. You can't, the witch said, blind eyes rolling. You can only become the door. Before Lyra could ask more, Thorn pressed a brittle bone charm into her hand. This will hurt, she said, but it'll show you what you truly are. The charm flared in Lyra's palm, and suddenly the cottage vanished. Lyra stood in a field of fire. The air was full of screams. Wolves clawing at the earth, tearing at their own minds. In the center, a woman stood draped in silver, eyes glowing. Morella, you came late, Morella whispered. But it's not your fault. Lyra tried to speak, but her voice was gone. Morella raised a hand. This curse wasn't made to punish you. It was to preserve you. Lyra shook her head, confused. Morella turned, revealing a dying wolf beside. Her massive, crowned with gold fur and runes carved into his ribs. The Rogue King killed him, Morella said softly. Your ancestor, the first Alpha, and from his death you were born. You carry his blood. That's why you survived the curse. The world blurred again. Flashes of battles, broken oaths, witches screaming. Lyra clutched her head. You're not cursed anymore, Lyra, Morella said. You're awakening. Kaelin caught Lyra as she collapsed outside the witch's cabin. Jareth rushed to her side. What happened? She touched something, Kaelin muttered, lifting her. Something that pulled her under. It took 3 hours before she woke, gasping, sweating, whispering names Kaelin didn't recognize. But then she looked at him. Clear. Changed. I know who I am, she said. Kaelin held her hand. Then tell me. I'm not just cursed. I'm marked by blood magic. I carry the first Alpha's line. That's why Morella chose me. Why the Rogue King wants me. Kaelin went still. You're a direct descendant. She nodded. And if I don't master this power, he'll use me to tear open the old boundaries. That night, she and Kaelin trained under moonlight, her learning to control her magic, him helping her channel it safely. But something began to strain between them. Every time he touched her now, her skin shimmered, reacted, not with pain, but heat, not burning madness. Something alive. It scared them both. The Rogue King didn't wait. He attacked the eastern ridge under a blood moon. By the time the alarm reached Kaelin, 3 villages had burned, and a 4th had vanished. Nothing, left but scorched earth. He's moving faster, Jareth said grimly. He's not just posturing anymore. Kaelin stood at the war table, fists clenched. He wants Lyra rattled. He's trying to force her hand. She's stronger now, Jareth said, glancing toward the training fields where Lyra stood, with Thorn, fire circling her feet. Yes, Kaelin said, but he's not after her strength. He wants to break her spirit. When Kaelin approached her later that night, she didn't smile. I felt them die, she whispered. Everyone, of them, he didn't know what to say. He's inside me, Kaelin, she said, pressing her fingers to her temple. He's in here, and if I lose focus, even for a second. He wrapped his arms around her, despite the tremble in his veins. Then, I'll be your focus, he whispered. I'll keep you here. Lyra stood in front of the mirror, her skin lined with faint silver, like cracks in porcelain where the curse had once lived. I'm not who I was, she said to her reflection. Behind her, Kaelin stood at the doorway, silent. She turned slowly. And you? Still want me? His voice was quiet. I always did. But I'm not safe. Not yet. Maybe never. Kaelin walked forward. That never stopped me. She stepped back. You should have stayed away. He stopped, inches from her. I couldn't. I won't. She lifted a hand to his cheek. And for the first time, her fingers didn't shimmer, didn't burn. He sucked in a breath. They stood like that for a long moment, both trembling. Then she pulled away, heart pounding. It's fading. Yes, Kaelin said, his voice hoarse. But not fast enough. She looked up at him. Then promise me, if I ever lose control, no. He stepped closer again. I won't let you go down that road. You might have to. I won't, he repeated, more fiercely. I've waited all my life for you, Lyra. I will burn with you before I ever raise a hand against you. She blinked, tears forming, and for the first time, she believed him. The royal tombs were older than any written record. Carved into the mountains, sealed with runes that pulsed beneath Lyra's fingers like a second heartbeat. Kaelin stood beside, her torchlight flickering across the ancient stone. I thought we were done with haunted caves, he muttered. Lyra didn't respond. She could feel it. The presence of something beneath, watching, waiting. Mirella's vision had led her here. Not to answers, to truth. The runes responded to her blood. When she cut her palm and pressed it to the center of the carved door, it split open with a sigh. Inside lay a single sarcophagus, covered in ivy, untouched by time. At its base, a name carved in fading language. Alaric, the first Alpha. I saw him die, Lyra whispered. In the vision, Kaelin scanned the room. What do you hope to find here? She knelt by the grave, running her fingers along the base. He died trying to stop the rise of the Rogue King, but he left something behind. Something to finish what he couldn't. As her fingers pressed deeper, something clicked. The stone shifted, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside, wrapped in black velvet, was a blade, forged from moonstone and iron, and marked with her crest. The blade pulsed with warmth as Lyra held it, and something inside her stirred. She felt Kaelin watching, his jaw clenched. What is it? A weapon, she said softly, but not to kill him, to bind him. He moved closer. You think it's strong enough? She nodded. It was made by the witches of the high moon. This is why he's afraid of me. When they returned to the pack grounds, Jareth met them with grim news. The Rogue King has moved west, he said. He's gathering support, packs who fear your awakening. Lyra's jaw tensed. Let them fear. It's more than that, Jareth said. He's turned Luna Merrill. She's promised her warriors to his cause. Kaelin swore under his breath. We trained with her. She raised half my scouts. Lyra gripped the blade. Then we give them a reason to doubt him. How? We show them what I can do. That night, under full moonlight, Lyra stepped into the training fields. Fire danced from her hands. Wind bent to her will. And when she raised the blade and called out the old words from the tomb, the very earth trembled. Every wolf in the camp dropped to their knees, not from fear, from recognition. The first Alpha's heir had returned. The war council met before dawn. Kaelin, Jareth, Lyra, Thorn, and the remaining loyal Alphas sat around the ironwood table, eyes fixed on the map. He's heading for the Bastion, Thorn said, tapping the western border. If he controls it, he'll sever the north from the rest. And Lyra, asked Alpha Wynn, her eyes flicking toward her. He'll come for her when she's weakest, Kaelin said. Probably during the siege. Lyra spoke then, voice even. Then we go to the Bastion first. Silence fell. You want to face him now? Jareth asked. I'm not ready to win, she said. But I'm ready to stand, and that might be enough to shake his alliance. Kaelin exhaled, then nodded. We'll move at sundown. Prepare everyone. That evening, Lyra stood at the edge of the camp, watching the horizon burn red. Kaelin found her there. Are you afraid? He asked. She nodded. Of failing. Of becoming what he thinks I am. You're nothing like him, Kaelin said. He takes. You protect. I love you, she whispered suddenly. He went still. She smiled faintly. I wanted to say it. Before all this. He reached for her hand. She let him hold it now. I've loved you since I was old enough to understand what it meant to want someone you couldn't have, he murmured. She leaned into him. Then let's end this. Together. The Bastion was under siege by the time they arrived. Smoke curled over the ridge, the scent of burning fur and magic thick in the air. Lyra stood at the front line, eyes scanning the battlefield. He's here, she said. I can feel him. Kaelin gave the signal. The wolves moved in flanking lines, pushing toward the inner walls. From the eastern hill, a horn sounded. The Rogue King appeared, tall, cloaked in black, his eyes wild with a power that made the ground quake. Lyra stepped forward. Do you know? Me, she called across the battlefield. He paused, lips curling. I knew your ancestor. He begged for mercy. And I'll make you beg for the same. He laughed. You haven't unlocked it yet. I can smell it. You're still holding back. I'm not here to kill you, Lyra said. I'm here to end this. She raised the blade. The Rogue King hissed, actually recoiled. Magic crackled, and then, without warning, he charged. They clashed in the center of the field. His magic was raw, unstable, a storm of darkness and rot. Hers was tighter, controlled, a burning thread of fire laced with moonlight. They circled each other, throwing spells, blades colliding. Kaelin fought his way through the chaos toward her, cutting down anyone who tried to stop him. Lyra, he shouted as she staggered. The Rogue King caught her arm and didn't fall. You've changed, he hissed. You're like me now. I'll never be like you. Then why does your power taste like mine? She snarled and drove the blade into his chest. He screamed, magic crackling up his spine, but he didn't fall, not completely. The binding worked, partially. He fell to his knees, twitching, contained, but still conscious. The cost hit her instantly. Lyra collapsed. blood dripping from her nose. Kaelin reached her just as she fell. "I couldn't finish it," she gasped. "You did enough," he said, lifting her into his arms. The battlefield fell into stunned silence. The Rogue King was chained, but not yet defeated, and Lyra had paid a terrible price. Her eyes dimmed, her voice barely above a whisper. "He touched me and survived." Lyra's body convulsed on the healer's table, skin fever-hot, veins glowing faintly beneath her skin like molten threads. The war camp had gone quiet. No cheers of victory, just silence and dread. Mirella hovered nearby, hands coated in herb, paste, muttering incantations under her breath. "She's not dying," Mirella said, voice tight. "But something inside her is breaking, shifting." Kaelin stood at her side, blood spattered across his armor, fists clenched. "She's not waking up. She used too much. That blade, it wasn't meant for someone still bound to the curse." "She wasn't bound," he snapped. "He touched her and survived." Mirella paused. "Not all of him survived. Didn't you see the way he convulsed? Part of him was torn out." "What does that mean?" Mirella looked up slowly. "It means part of her curse has latched onto him." Jareth entered the tent, his expression grim. He's chained in the mountain cells, still conscious, still smiling. He wants to speak to her. "She's unconscious," Kaelin growled. "He said he knows how to save her." Kaelin stared down at Lyra's pale face. Her fingers twitched. He looked at Jareth. "Then he better start talking." The Rogue King was restrained with chains of moonstone and wolfsbane, his body weak, but his mind disturbingly lucid. His eyes tracked Kaelin the moment he stepped into the stone cell. "You've aged well," the Rogue King rasped. "Your father would be proud." Kaelin didn't respond. "Tell me what you did to her." "I did nothing. She reached into me, took a part of me with her. Now it's eating her alive." Kaelin crossed the room in 2 strides and slammed him against the wall. "Then undo it." "She's at a crossroads," the king wheezed. "She'll either become like me, immortal, corrupted, or she'll die." "What choice is that?" The Rogue King smiled. "The same one I made, a long time ago." Kaelin released him and stepped back. "You chose power. I chose love," the king hissed. "I tried to save her, the first one, the witch who bore the curse. But she begged me to end her, so I took her magic instead. It cursed me too." Kaelin stilled. "You were in love with her." "Yes, and now she lives again. In Lyra." Kaelin's blood ran cold. "She's not her," he growled. "No, she's better, but she'll die unless someone takes her burden." Silence. The king leaned forward, smiling. "Do you love her enough to carry it for her?" Lyra floated in darkness. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that whispered, that pulled, that remembered. Voices echoed around her, ancient, female, familiar. "Will you join us again? Will you fall as we did?" She saw herself, eyes glowing silver, hands aflame, standing alone on a battlefield that never ended. And in the distance, a man watched. Not Kaelin, the first, the origin of the curse, the one who loved and lost. "You can stay here," he said, "or return and risk being used. Again." Lyra turned away from him. "No." "Then what will you become?" She raised her chin. "Someone who chooses her fate, not inherits it." Behind her, the blade floated, still warm with her blood. She reached for it again, and everything burned. She woke screaming. Kaelin's arms caught her instantly. "Lyra, hey, you're okay. You're here." Her chest heaved. Her pupils flicked wildly before settling on him. You're not him," she whispered. "No, I'm here. Just me." She gripped his shirt. "Don't take it. Don't take it from me." "What? He offered you the curse, didn't he?" He hesitated. Her breath caught. You can't carry it. It would destroy you. Maybe, but I'd do it. She shook her head violently. No, I have to be the one. I'm the last one who can hold it without turning. He cupped her face. Then we find a way, together, and this time, she let him touch her without fear. Lyra sat in the moonlight, blade on her lap. The final pages of Alaric's prophecy spread across the stones. Morella, Kaelin, and Jareth stood nearby, watching as she read aloud. The final bond must be broken by blood willingly given and by a name willingly forsaken. Kaelin furrowed his brow. Name? It means I must sever my connection to the bloodline, Lyra said. Renounce my claim. Walk away from being Alpha. Morella's mouth parted. You'd lose your rank, your rights, your inheritance. She'd gain her freedom, Kaelin said. Lyra nodded. I'd rather live unknown than die cursed. Jareth stepped forward. You don't have to do this. We've stood behind you all this way. Lyra smiled. Then help me finish it. They gathered in the circle outside, the mountain pass. The spell was old, carved in the tongue of the first moon. Lyra stood alone, the blade raised. I am Lyra, daughter of no line, child of no name. I give up my claim, my rank, my right to lead. I choose life. She sliced her palm, letting the blood spill onto the runes. The wind howled, the stars flared, and in the distance, the Rogue King screamed. The Rogue King's chains cracked. He collapsed, gasping. It's gone, he whispered. The bond, it's broken. Morella stood at the mouth of the cell. Your power's undone. You're mortal now. He laughed bitterly. Then kill me. Lyra entered, calm and steady. No, she said. You'll live, forgotten, powerless. That's your punishment. He looked up at her, no longer hateful, but hollow. You look just like her. I'm not her, I'm me, and I've chosen a different ending. He turned his face away. Kaelin wrapped his arm around her shoulder. It's over, but Lyra didn't move. Her eyes drifted to the moonlight. Her heart was quiet now. For the first time, it didn't beat against her ribs like a threat. I want to go home, she whispered. Kaelin kissed the side of her head. Then let's go home. That night, the pack feasted. The bastion was reclaimed. The last of the cursed line had broken her chain. Jareth was sworn in as Alpha Regent. Thorn and Morella departed to rebuild the Southern Coven. The Rogue King was sent into exile, powerless and nameless. And Lyra. She stood barefoot in the clearing behind the Alpha's cabin, wind in her hair, Kaelin's hand in hers. He turned to her. So, now that touching you won't kill me, what do we do? She grinned. We start over. He kissed her then. Not tentative, not desperate, but real. And when their lips met under the full moon, it wasn't the end of a curse. It was the beginning of a life. The morning light poured through the windows of the Alpha's cabin, soft and golden. Lyra sat across from Kaelin at the wooden table. The tension between them dissolved like mist. I never thought we'd see this day, Kaelin said quietly, his hand brushing hers. Lyra smiled. Neither did I. After everything, it feels surreal. He leaned forward, eyes bright. So, what now? She paused, thinking of the long years marked by fear, distance, and silent longing. Now, we live, together, no curses, no shadows. Kaelin's grin deepened. Together. Outside, the pack stirred. Wolves howled softly in greeting to the new day, a day unburdened by darkness. Jareth entered, nodding at them. The Regency Council is calling a meeting. New, alliances, rebuilding, preparations. Lyra stood, steady and sure. Then let's get to work. The council meeting was held under the great oak in the center of the bastion. Loyal alphas, betas, and elders gathered, faces weary but hopeful. Jareth addressed the crowd. The rogue king's exile is absolute. His supporters will be welcomed to reclaim their honor. If they choose peace, murmurs spread. Kaelin raised his hand. And Lyra has agreed to lead us, not as a cursed descendant, but as our alpha. The crowd fell silent. Lyra stepped forward, voice calm but strong. I won't be the leader of fear or magic. I'll be the leader of strength and unity. A woman from the Southern Pack, Luna Merrill's second-in-command, stepped up. We've lost much, but with trust, we can heal. The crowd broke into applause. Afterward, Jareth approached Kaelin. She's ready. Kaelin nodded. And so am I. Days later, Lyra stood beneath the stars with Morella and Thorn, the two witches who had shaped her path. You've done what many never could, Morella said softly. Lyra looked up. I couldn't have without you. Thorn smiled. The curse was a chain, but you made it a choice. And what now? Lyra asked. To teach, Morella said. To rebuild the old magic. To ensure no one suffers as you did. Lyra's gaze drifted to Kaelin, who waited patiently nearby. I want to build a future where love isn't limited by fear. Thorn nodded. Then you will. As the witches disappeared into the night, Lyra took Kaelin's hand. Let's start. In the quiet of the evening, Kaelin and Lyra shared a moment by the fire. You waited a long time for me, Lyra said, tracing patterns on his hand. He smiled, eyes reflecting the flames. I never stopped, even when the curse kept us apart. She looked up, searching his face. Do you think we can be normal? He chuckled. Normal is overrated. Lyra laughed softly. What do you want then? To build something lasting, to protect you, to be the mate you deserve. She leaned into him. I don't want to be protected. I want to stand beside you. Kaelin kissed her forehead. Then we'll face everything as equals. Months later, the pack thrived. New pups ran beneath ancient trees, their laughter and howls a song of freedom. Lyra and Kaelin stood atop the ridge, watching the sunset bleed gold and rose across the sky. You ever think about the past? Kaelin asked. Sometimes, Lyra said. But it doesn't hurt anymore. Kaelin wrapped an arm around her waist. We have a future now. No curses. No chains. Lyra smiled, her eyes bright. A life reclaimed. Their lips met in a kiss that promised forever. And under the vast sky, with the pack howling in harmony below, the mate he once couldn't touch was finally his.